What's up guys, my name is Kale Brock. I'm a surfer and a filmmaker. I also do a bunch of surf coaching retreats around the world, and today I want to break down one of my attendees' analysis clips that they received after coming to the wave pool with me to have a look at their progression and how you guys can learn from that and take your surfing to the next level. All of the information that I'm sharing with you is from my unique curriculum, The Surfer's Roadmap, found at thesurfersroadmap.com. It's my online surfing university designed to break down all the complexities of surfing into really simple, comprehensive lessons for you in order for you to actually gain clarity around a step-by-step pathway through from beginner surfing all the way through to advanced. So make sure you check it out at the link in the description below. You can also join me on Instagram at KalesBroccoli. But now, let's jump in. So this first surfer came to me at what we would call maybe an upper beginner level. There's obviously some issues there with the pop-up, but because we're dealing with a situation where the waves are perfect and consistent, that's why the wave pool's so good. We generally just point that out on the day, give some pointers, but we don't focus on it because we want the surfer to gain as much on-wave progression as possible whilst they're standing up riding along the face of the wave. Now obviously if the takeoff is hindering them to a point where they can't get out onto the face of the wave, then we need to work on it. But because this surfer's coping quite well, we're going to focus on their manoeuvres. So this is someone who I would see basically just cutting across the face of the wave without any real direction or awareness as to how to achieve some more advanced approaches. And we would signify that as someone who is sort of crossing the midway point of the wave repeatedly as they move down the line, going from low to high on the wave, because aesthetically that's quite pleasing. It also indicates an optimization of speed generation and speed use throughout the ride. So as we go out and connect with that power zone, the upper half of the wave, that's where we can actually perform maneuvers, and then as we fall back down, we can gain speed. So on the back end for this surfer, what I really wanted to achieve was to bring awareness around the positioning at the bottom of the wave and what a bottom turn feels like, which is really key, because a lot of people think they're doing a bottom turn, but they're kind of just doing this fan out of the arms, which is what this particular surfer was doing. So what I choose to communicate with them is to sit as if they're almost in a chair at the bottom of the wave, and that means we're going to see almost a 90-degree angle at the bottom of the wave. The other thing they're going to do is adopt a shovel position with the upper body, and this is where you could literally just sort of place a shovel in their hands, and it would be like they're scooping up some dirt off the bottom of the wave, and what that is going to achieve is to get them into this nice position here that forces engagement of the heel side rail, which will sort of tilt them onto their bum a little bit. They'll accentuate that with a twist to actually lift and twist themselves up the wave. Now that was actually the focus point of our analysis after the first session on the right-hander. But lo and behold, the surfer actually went out there and started pulling some pretty decent maneuvers. As you can see, adopting that technique and holding that low position and going through that maneuver, even though it wasn't an advanced maneuver, the technique, the movement is still there. And you really have to consider that the surfer's riding like a very thick-railed foamy, which is not a performance board at all. You know, you put this surfer on a more high performance, maybe mid-length or something like that, then there's probably going to be some pretty solid turns there. So that was a really nice achievement. The key cue there is to sit in the chair at the bottom of the wave, get low, rotate, and then lift with the leading arm. And what that lift does, it lifts you up the wave and then causes this shoulder tilt to occur where the trailing arm actually drops, and that forces you to actually roll over onto the toe side rail. And in doing so, and coupling it with good twist, good torsion, you're actually able to extend out the back leg, rebound off the lip of the wave, and achieve a backside maneuver. So there you go again. Get low, rotate, lift, punch down and across the body. The next thing we wanted to look at was the forehand. And again, the surfer wasn't really implementing a bottom turn. at all. They were kind of just, obviously, you know, this is sort of standard textbook surf school sort of product. When I see people, I can sort of tell when they've gone to just a standard surf school, and basically the surf school just says to turn, do this with your arms, you know. And there is an element of truth to that, but without the proper building blocks for the maneuver, without the prior movements taking place, the turn is always going to either start poorly or end poorly, or both. Okay, so we actually need to perform the maneuver from an appropriate position. So for that, we're going to talk about the neutral position. The neutral position is where we have the trailing arm starting the maneuver behind us. And this is really key because it gives us the maximum amount of space to rotate into during our maneuver. If we go up to the top of the wave and our trailing arm is in front of us already, then we've actually cashed in a lot of rotational potential before we go through that maneuver. And that's what this surfer was doing, along with having a significant lack of extension off the bottom. Okay, so we really wanted them to actually focus on that, getting low on the bottom of the wave, and then as they extend up the wave, actually pulling with the back arm so that they could actually maximize that space. So that was one of the cues that we talked about, to force the surfer to have a little bit more drive within the maneuver, a little bit more speed to work with, a little bit more torsion, rotation, and that would hopefully lead to a better maneuver. So as you can see here, the surfer was able to achieve a pretty significant increase in output there, particularly from a speed perspective. If I play these clips side by side compared to the old one, the surfer's moving really fast in the second clip. So that was a pretty big improvement there, basically going from, you know, a tiny little half turn to a proper turn. There's still some improvements there to be made, but in one day, that's, you know, basically the surfer's progressed, I would say, around, you know, 6 months in one day, which is a pretty special sort of achievement. Okay, so we're going to have a look at a takeoff dynamics now. For this next surfer, there was, you know, a step up for this surfer from our beginner program to our intermediate program. And this was significant because the wave size jumps up quite significantly. So what was happening was the surfer didn't quite have the paddling prowess to match the intensity of the wave, and as a result was planing along the wave on their belly just to sort of safely enter the wave and then popping up, which is not necessarily a bad thing to do, particularly when you are trying to build up confidence. But in the end, it is going to have a big impact on what happens for the surfer, particularly out in the ocean. You know, when you have unpredictable waves, when you have generally shorter waves, if you sacrifice 50% of that wave by riding it on your belly, obviously you're not going to have a particularly fantastic time. The other thing we looked at was speed flow. So really trying to find some compression and extension out of the lower body. If we were to really break down what surfing is, most of the experience is actually paddling. And it is such an underrated skill in the sport, because without adequate paddle strength and the ability to generate momentum of you and your surfboard, you're always going to be sort of outmatched by the wave, and you're always going to feel like things are a lot more difficult than they need to be from a pop-up and entry perspective. To demonstrate this and help surfers find that confidence, sometimes I like to completely remove the paddling part of the equation. So what I'll actually do, I'll actually go out in the water and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with your takeoff. And what I'm going to do is just push them in. So I'll actually give them a big sort of thrust forward into the wave and time it appropriately. And all of a sudden they can pop up perfectly. And something switches and they go, hang on, there's nothing wrong with my pop-up. It's actually with my paddling and my positioning. And then I remove myself from the equation after that point, and they have to then fill that gap, that discrepancy that I was temporarily filling. And lo and behold, oftentimes the surfer is able to just connect and click in because they now realize how much momentum and speed they actually need in order to pop up successfully on a wave. So that was one of these circumstances, and this happens actually quite a lot. I've had this happen quite a few times. And it's a great way for surfers to overcome that seemingly big barrier and big hurdle of the takeoff, is to just actually be assisted into a couple of waves to know what it feels like, to know how much speed they need to enter the wave safely. So if you look at these side by side, going both left and right here, instead of popping up at the bottom of the wave and having to try and regain speed and momentum and whatnot, the surfer's now entering the wave very confidently and actually popping up in that top power zone. And from here, the possibilities are pretty much endless, because when you enter a wave well, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So that was another example of how fast someone can progress in one day with the right advice and with the right coaching. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure you check out thesurfersroadmap.com. It's my online surfing university that contains a lot of the information that I've talked about in this clip here. And don't forget, I'm also running a bunch of experiences around the world where I actually host retreats like this. So you can check all that out in the link in the description below too. Other than that, come and say hi on Instagram, hit the subscribe button, all that sort of stuff. I've been quite busy / hesitant to jump into the editing booth lately because I'm just in surf mode, soaking it up. But it's good to connect with you guys and reflect on the success of all the experiences that I have run so far. It's quite thrilling for me to see my clients achieve such incredible things in such a short amount of time. Cheers, guys. See you soon.